Hello and welcome to this special edition of Montclair News Lab. I'm Grace Rowland.
And I'm Louis Biontalillo. This week on Montclair News Lab, we're focusing on the impact of the election and what it means specifically for young people.
Joining me now is renowned American journalist, MSNBC analyst, and New York Times bestselling author, Jonathan Alter. So you've covered 10 presidential elections, and this was an unusual one. So what's been different about this election compared to others that you've seen?
This particular president of the United States does not respect our traditions and is making baseless charges that relate to the core of our democracy, which is a dangerous moment for us. So we're all living through what I hope is not going to become a constitutional crisis or a cold civil war, but is a very perilous situation. And it was just a good thing for our country that he lost the election.
So how do you think President Trump will handle the transition of power?
Poorly. He indicated before the election that that the only way he could lose would be if the election was stolen from him. And then he suggested, immediately that it had been stolen without any evidence. It would be rather hard, just take a step back and think about it. How could you steal the votes for Biden, but not steal the votes for the Senate candidates below that? I mean, you can't rip the absentee ballot in half and say, okay, well, this part for the Senate candidates who are Republicans counts. This part for the presidential candidate is phony and made up. I mean, the whole thing is preposterous. Everybody has called it for Biden. So he is the president-elect, and you now have this situation where the president will not do the right thing and allow a lawful transition to go forward. If he still refuses to leave on January 20th, he will be escorted by the Secret Service off the White House premises.
So what is the biggest challenge facing President-elect Joe Biden?
Well, I guess it would be the coronavirus and getting it under control, because we can't fix our economy until the virus is under control. And so Biden already has brought in a team of true experts who will give him high quality advice. And the problem is that they can't start planning for how they will combat the virus until we have an orderly transition. If we don't get control of this soon, it's going to kill a lot more people. And so there are stakes here to Trump's unconstitutional, narcissistic ego trip that he's on right now.
Thank you so much, John, for your expertise. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
2020 has been the year of COVID and its devastating impact all over the world. Reporter Theresa Gomez has a story of 3 New Jerseyans and how the virus affected them.
When New Jersey had its first COVID cases, many people were confused, scared, and could not completely put into perspective what was happening. Everything changed. This is the story of 3 people and how they survived the earliest days of this pandemic.
And I realized, oh my God, I am actually experiencing this symptom.
Sonia Bozic, a professor at Montclair State School of Communication and Media, and her husband, a gallery cultural center owner, Alexander, got the coronavirus at the end of March.
Initially, I didn't even notice, because I only had loss of smell and I felt completely fine. My husband started having symptoms, and that's the weirdest thing. And I think the most dangerous because you are not aware.
Sonia had a milder case of coronavirus, and her husband's condition was much worse.
As I remember, night before I got a fever, I have some strange dreams that I'm in some very, very dangerous situation. And in 1 hour, I had a body ache. Oh, but when I wake up in the morning, I was a little bit tired and nothing more. But then in next night, I got a fever and very strong body ache. It was next 36 hours. My joints were very painful. In that moment, I was thinking that, maybe this is the end.
For the entire time, we stayed inside. At that time, you couldn't get tested. There was no way we could, because New York was a crazy, messy place. We even called our primary care doctor, and I felt like the person on the other side couldn't wait to hang up.
Dr. Fatima Salhamid, a family care physician in Westfield with Summit Medical Group, encountered her first cases early on.
I think we didn't have enough data about COVID at the time. It was flu season, so I was seeing a lot of patients in office. We didn't have guidelines to wear masks or anything like that, so we probably had exposure as well. We're swabbing patients all the time, so some of my patients did turn out to be COVID positive after I evaluated them, managed them. We were starting to see patients that were flu negative, strep negative, and we just presumed that it was it was just another virus and viral infection until we realized that we didn't have a test to test for COVID.
As doctors like Dr. Salhamid were figuring out what the virus was, Sonia and Alexander were trying remedies at home to help with their symptoms.
It's really important to keep your lungs wet and humid. Even taking showers, also to inhale cold water and then inhale that evaporation.
As stated by the Mayo Clinic, air moisture can ease symptoms of a cold or other respiratory conditions like coronavirus. Sonia and her husband are both doing well and recovered. And for Dr. Salhamid, telehealth went from something she always avoided with her patients to something she embraced.
Now, if you take a look at how COVID is treated now, I can say, look, we have tons of testing. If I know you have symptoms, I'm sending you to our urgent care. They're going to swab you. They're going to tell you right away if you have it or not.
Now that flu season is here and COVID rates are up, doctors are worried, but more prepared.
If COVID plans to stick around that entire time, I think we might have a little bit of a burnout, and who's to say we'll really have enough PPE, because we kind of didn't.
But what doctors can't control is the spread of misinformation. According to the American Journal for Managed Care, there have been 2,311 reports of rumors, stigma, and conspiracy theories in 25 languages and in 87 countries.
We have to protect ourselves, and even though we were careful, we got it. You can't gamble with your own life, and you cannot gamble with others people's life.
A couple and a doctor who overcame the challenges this virus has caused. Reporting from Montclair News Lab, this is Theresa Gomez.
Schools around the country and here in New Jersey are once again seeing an increase in COVID cases and being forced to turn remote. It's been a trying year for students, parents, and teachers. Rosario Lopresti has a story of a first-time teacher who found himself not in the classroom, but in his parents' house.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to history class.
Connor Smith is one of the many new teachers starting his career during the coronavirus pandemic. He teaches 6th grade history at a charter school in Brooklyn, New York, and he's teaching from home.
If you had told me last year that my first year teaching would be completely online, I wouldn't have believed you. Some of the challenges that I face as a new teacher during COVID is having to transition to completely online learning. Having to take professional development classes and learning on the fly about how to be a teacher. I had to move back home over the summer due to COVID. I originally lived in Brooklyn and worked in Brooklyn, but with COVID closing down the schools, I had to move back home for financial reasons.
We're actually happy that Connor's home and teaching. We think it's a good way for him to get on his feet and get a head start without having to worry about paying rent.
There are some benefits to teaching online, however. I would say that engagement from families and parents has been much higher now. They have a more active role in their child's education. And I would also say that students are somehow doing great work and are really engaging with the lessons and the homework that they have to do.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Mr. Smith calling from LPVVMA.
Every once in a while, Connor checks up on his students to make sure that they are staying connected through a computer screen.
Connecting with students through a computer screen isn't that difficult, actually. Something that I've tried to implement is something for each day of the week that they participate in. So on Mondays, we look at a meme of history, and on Tuesdays, we listen to music before class, and sometimes that music has historical or political significance.
I think I'm doing pretty good learning over Zoom, but I would rather be present with my teachers and students in the classroom, because also I think preserving more when I'm in the classroom and when my teachers are in the same room with me teaching.
I think Mr. Smith is a very good teacher. He's very attentive to the children. I think that given the circumstances that he just is a new teacher starting out with this pandemic, he's definitely very attentive and caring.
Thank you all for a great class. Thank you for participating, and I will see you all tomorrow.
It's been really important to just kind of roll with the punches and go with the flow and learn on the fly. So I do feel that this has prepared me to become a better teacher in the future and be able to adjust on the fly and meet the needs of our students in any way possible.
On the bright side, teachers are learning new skills that will outlast COVID. While online learning is most likely going to stretch through the winter of 2020, many teachers are hopeful and prepared that by the spring, they will go back to in-person learning. Reporting for Montclair News Lab, I am Rosaria Lopresti.
Joining us today, Christian Lundberg, an associate researcher at CIRCLE, which means the Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement in Massachusetts. Christian has worked on research projects at CIRCLE, including county-by-county analyses of voting patterns in the 2020 primaries. There was just one reason. What do all of these young people have in common that they really, really want to see change?
Sure, that's a really good question. And I would say that instead of focusing on what young people have in common, and they do have a lot in common. Young people in general bring a lot of expertise when it comes to their communities and when it comes to like sort of living in America today. But young people are also very different and very diverse, the most diverse generation ever. And because of that, young people in certain states and in certain areas, or young people of different backgrounds or of different races, will vote very differently as well and will prefer different sort of candidates. So it's important to recognize that in particular, in some places, young people such as like young Black voters in Georgia are voting in ways that really do differ from young white voters or young Hispanic voters. And as a consequence, they are making their own individual impact on the elections.
Thank you so much, Christian, for being here with us today.
Thank you. And hope you get some rest and some sleep after this crazy week.
Americans can have their voices heard in elections as soon as they turn 18. But what about those who aren't old enough to vote yet? Let's hear now from the future voters of America.
I know that Biden and Donald Trump are running for president.
His name is Joe Biden.
Donald Trump also.
Do you know the other person?
No, I don't know his name.
Donald Trump and President Trump.
Oh, they're two different people? Okay.
A president protects his country.
They go on the news. And I also think they have a lot of paperwork. Helps decide if it's a good law or if it's a bad law.
Does important work, and they run their country and they decide the rules.
The president takes care of our country. Chooses the Bill of Rights.
When you're done with college, you get to vote for president.
Well, now, since there's a virus, some people vote at home on a paper and then they put it in the mailboxes.
People vote by going to a voter's box and submitting their answers.
Voting means when you play videos.
We vote by signing papers.
I would choose what's best for the country, and I would make the right decisions.
If I were president, I would change the laws and make people help the homeless. That would make me very happy.
I don't know. Well, if I become president, then I know what I would do, but I don't know right now because I'm young.
If I were president, I would probably want to have the homeless people a place to stay.
People they speak different language and they're not allowed there to cross the border. I will change that.
Some people, they don't like this person because they're Black, and some people don't like this person because they're white. I really don't believe that everyone's equal and they can do the same thing you can do.
Follow us on social media on Instagram and Facebook at Montclair News Lab, on Twitter at MSU News Lab, And catch up with us on our website at montclairnewslab.tv for more.
Thank you for joining us on this special edition of Montclair News Lab. I'm Grace Rowland.
And I'm Louis Beyond Lillo. Stay smart and stay safe.